anybody in here, if you're not familiar with the concept of threat modeling, it's long story short, it's the exercise of trying to figure out how you would break your own environment, what all the risks that are identified are. You go through, you log them, you address them, remediate them, or suppress them. There are a few different tools out there to help you out with that. The screenshot up there is, from the Microsoft threat modeling tool. And it's a very basic threat model. It's one that we've all seen a million times. It's the client going to the web service that's getting data at the database. It's a very, very basic threat model. And you can see, there are interactions. There's the request that's going over the internet into the data center onto the web service. The web service is getting data from a database, and then that data returns, and then ultimately we get a response from a client. It's a very standard threat model. When you go through and you create these threat models, especially if you use like a threat modeling tool, what happens is a bunch of threats get identified automatically. And a lot of these are, make sure that if you have a database that you're doing input validation, make sure that if you're sending data over the wire that it's encrypted, things like that. One thing about threat modeling, it's part of the standard, security development lifecycle. It's one of those things that you've got to continuously do. You're going to continuously change and adapt it to the emerging threats that are out there. And, the biggest thing about threat modeling is that it all breaks down usually to about 3 different components, right? And that's, a data store or a process, so that's these big icons in the middle. There's the pipe, which is the request response, and then there are boundaries. That's the internet boundary, and then the data center boundary. Those are the 3 things. And then anytime you're crossing a boundary or making an intersection point, new threats get introduced. And so, moving to the next part, if you look at each of these points, I just gave a couple examples. All along the way, there's an answer that's PKI related. Now, whether or not you choose to use PKI to address these items in your threat model is entirely up to you. But you look at the client going to the web service. Well, the client might have local data. It might be running an app. You might be running a user that's on there that's sensitive. There are mitigations that involve certificates that you could be signing the code on the client to make sure that it's coming from a good place, that the supply chain's good. If there's data local to the client, you can leverage PKI for disk encryption or for local encryption, and you can also leverage PKI for multi-factor authentication. Same thing with the wire. There's TLS to make sure that we have an encrypted channel. There, you could also use IPsec. There's mutual authentication, so we're actually going through and verifying the client on the way in. And then there's also if you knew that you were bare on the wire, you could do just flat file encryption and send that stuff over the wire. And you should have to have an answer to the key transport. And then on the back end, there's the same things. You want to protect the administrator connections. You have disk encryption for any sensitive data, and you signing code for any malicious stuff. So this is a very basic threat model. This is what a really advanced threat model looks like. And you can see there every single connection is TLS. Every single connection. So at least we know that we're going to be moving data over encrypted pipe. And why is this important? If we are using certificates to mitigate risks all across the threat model, where are these certificates coming from? Do we trust where the certificates come from? Do we know if we feel good about that? And that's where Spotlight comes in. I'm going to go ahead and move to my screen.